Life is going to test you. Not maybe, not if you're unlucky. It will, it already has. It's going to throw situations at you that are completely unfair, that you didn't deserve, that nobody warned you about. People who disappoint you, plans that collapse, circumstances that seem designed specifically to break you down. The only question that really matters, is what kind of mind you're going to bring to those moments. Because there are two kinds of people in any difficult situation. The first kind is shattered by it. Their peace of mind collapses. Their clarity disappears. Their entire sense of self depends on things going right. And when things go wrong, they go wrong along with the circumstances. The second kind is different. They still feel the difficulty. They're not pretending. They're not performing some forced optimism. But they have something the first kind doesn't. An internal foundation that the external situation cannot reach. A mind that doesn't break when life gets hard. Wayne Dyer spent 40 years studying that difference. And what he found, from both psychology and ancient wisdom, is something genuinely extraordinary. The unbreakable mind isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, daily, through specific practices, through a specific way of understanding yourself and your relationship to the world around you. And that is exactly what this video is about. Not motivation, not positive thinking, a real, practical, deeply researched framework for building a mind that nothing can permanently break. Let's start with the most fundamental insight Wayne Dyer ever had about the human mind. Wayne Dyer had one central observation about human suffering. And it's this: most people live outside in. What does that mean? It means their internal state, their peace of mind, their confidence, their sense of okayness, is entirely determined by what's happening outside them. When circumstances are good, they feel good. When circumstances are bad, they feel bad. Their emotional state is on loan from the world, and the world can repossess it at any moment. He described it like this: outside in people are like thermometers. They simply register the temperature of their environment. Cold outside, they feel cold. Hot outside, they feel hot. Whatever the world is doing, they reflect it internally. And here's why this is such a problem. The world is unpredictable. Circumstances change constantly. Other people are unreliable, not because they're bad, but because they're human, with their own struggles and their own unpredictability. If your peace depends on these things being stable, your peace will never be stable. The alternative Dyer taught was inside-out living, not being controlled by what's happening around you, but operating from a stable internal foundation regardless of external conditions. He used a different metaphor for inside-out people: a thermostat. A thermostat doesn't register the temperature, it sets it. No matter what the temperature outside does, the thermostat maintains the internal environment it's been set to. You can be a thermometer or a thermostat, and the difference between those two things is the difference between a mind that breaks and a mind that doesn't. Now, and this is critical, inside-out living is not the same as being emotionally disconnected. It's not about becoming cold or robotic or pretending things don't affect you. It's about building a foundation deep enough that even when you feel the impact of what's happening, you don't lose yourself in it. Wayne Dyer felt things deeply. He cried, he struggled, he grieved, but he maintained his internal ground. That's the model, not numbness, depth. Let's look at what's actually happening neurologically when a mind either breaks under pressure or holds its ground. Because this isn't just philosophy, it's biology. The brain has two key regions that are relevant here. The first is the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. The amygdala's job is to detect threats and trigger the stress response. When something threatening happens, a confrontation, a loss, unexpected bad news, the amygdala fires. Cortisol floods the system, clarity goes down, reactivity goes up. The second region is the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center. This is where clear thinking, wise decision-making, emotional regulation, and long-term perspective live. When the prefrontal cortex is online and functioning, you can think clearly under pressure. You can respond instead of react. You can access your best self even when things are hard. Here's the problem: when the amygdala fires intensely, when stress is high, it partially shuts down the prefrontal cortex. The technical term is amygdala hijack. Your rational brain goes offline. You're operating from pure reaction. And in that state, you break. People who have built unbreakable minds have, through consistent practice, trained their amygdala to be less reactive and their prefrontal cortex to stay more online under pressure. This isn't metaphorical. Harvard Medical School research has shown that people who practice meditation consistently show measurable shrinkage of the amygdala over time. The alarm system becomes quieter. The executive center becomes stronger. Wayne Dyer understood this intuitively, decades before the neuroscience caught up. His practices, meditation, stillness, conscious breathing, deliberate response rather than automatic reaction, are all amygdala training. They are literally reshaping the brain toward unbreakability. This means the unbreakable mind is not a personality trait you either have or don't. It's a skill, a trainable, buildable, measurably improvable skill. And the training starts with what we're going to talk about next. The first practice Wayne Dyer taught for building an unbreakable mind is what he called radical acceptance. And I want to be very precise about what this means, because it's easily misunderstood. Radical acceptance is not approval. It is not saying that what happened was okay. It is not pretending that difficulty isn't real. It is not surrendering your standards or giving up on change. Radical acceptance is simply this: the cessation of resistance to what has already happened. Here's why this matters. When something difficult happens, a loss, a failure, an injustice, there are two layers of pain. The first layer is the actual pain of the situation. This is real. This is unavoidable. No practice eliminates this. The second layer is the pain of resistance. The internal fighting against reality. The "this shouldn't be happening." The "this isn't fair." The "why me?" The mental replay of the event. The desperate wish that it hadn't happened. The anger at the fact that it did. This second layer of pain, the resistance, is where most suffering actually lives. And it is entirely optional. Not easy to release, but optional. Wayne Dyer taught this principle directly from the Tao Te Ching, which he studied for an entire year while writing one of his most important books. The Tao teaches Wu Wei, non-resistance. Moving with what is, rather than fighting against it. Not passivity, active, intelligent, creative movement, but without the friction of resistance. The practical question Dyer recommended asking when facing any difficult situation is this: this is what is. Now what do I choose? Not, why is this happening? That question points backward. Now what do I choose points forward. It moves you from victim to author in one shift of focus. Radical acceptance doesn't make hard things easy, but it removes the extra layer of suffering that serves no purpose. And in doing so, it preserves the mental and emotional energy you need to actually deal with what's in front of you. The second practice is one that Wayne Dyer considered absolutely fundamental, and it's based on a distinction that sounds simple but is genuinely life-changing. The distinction between response and reaction. A reaction is automatic. Something happens. Your mind immediately generates an emotional and behavioral output based on old patterns, old conditioning, old wounds. You don't choose it, it just happens. Stimulus, reaction, like a reflex. A response is different. Something happens, and in the space between stimulus and output, you pause. Even for a moment, even for a breath, and in that pause, you choose how to engage. Stimulus, pause, response. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who Wayne Dyer deeply respected and often cited, put it this way: between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space, however small, is where the unbreakable mind lives. Because in that space, external circumstances cannot determine your internal state. You determine it. Now here's what's important about this. In early practice, that space is tiny. For most people who haven't worked on this, there is essentially no gap between stimulus and reaction. Something happens and the reaction is immediate and automatic. The practice of building that space is meditation. It's conscious breathing. It's the discipline of pausing, even once, even briefly, before responding to a difficult situation. Every time you pause, that space gets a little wider. Every time you choose your response rather than defaulting to a reaction, you deposit more evidence into the bank account of the unbreakable mind. Dyer practiced this consistently throughout his life. He was known by people who knew him personally as someone who rarely reacted, who almost always responded. Not because difficult things didn't affect him, but because he had built the space wide enough that he could always find a moment of choice before engaging. That space is available to you too. It just needs to be built. The third practice is the one Wayne Dyer was most consistent about throughout his entire life. And it's the one most people resist the most. Stillness. Dyer meditated every single morning for the last 30 years of his life. Not for 10 minutes, not when he felt like it. Every morning, for approximately 2 hours. Now before you check out, he didn't start there. And he didn't expect you to start there. He started with much shorter periods. But he maintained the practice with absolute consistency. Because he understood something that most people miss. The mind that can become still under voluntary conditions, during meditation, during intentional quiet, is a mind that can access stillness under involuntary conditions. Under pressure, under crisis, under the exact circumstances where most people's minds completely lose it, stillness is training. It's not rest, it's the most active practice you can do. Dyer described what happens in stillness in a phrase I find extraordinary. In the gap between thoughts, that's where God lives. Substitute whatever word works for you: the universe, consciousness, your deeper self, pure awareness. The point is the same. In the noise of constant mental activity, you cannot hear the signal. You cannot access your deepest wisdom, your clearest perception, your most authentic response. The noise is too loud. Stillness quiets the noise, and in that quiet, you find resources you didn't know you had. The practical starting point: 5 minutes. Every morning, before the phone, before the news, before the to-do list. 5 minutes of intentional quiet. Eyes closed, attention on the breath. When a thought comes, notice it, and return to the breath. That's the entire practice. 5 minutes, done consistently, will change your mind. Not immediately, but over weeks and months, you will notice something different. A quality of steadiness, a slightly wider gap between what happens and how you respond. A mind that is, slowly, measurably, becoming harder to break. I want to tell you something about Wayne Dyer's actual life. Because it's easy to teach principles from a comfortable position, it's another thing to live them when things genuinely get hard. In 2009, Wayne Dyer was diagnosed with leukemia. He was 69 years old. He had, by any measure, built an extraordinary life. 40 books, millions of readers, a career that had genuinely helped millions of people. And then, leukemia. What happened next is instructive. Dyer did not collapse. He did not abandon his principles when they were most tested. He treated his illness, and he continued working. He continued writing. He completed several more books. He continued giving talks. He lived with cancer for 6 years before dying in 2015, not from the leukemia, but from a heart attack in his sleep. In those 6 years, he spoke openly about his diagnosis, and what he said about it was consistent with everything he had taught. He said, "This is what is. And from this, I choose how to live." He practiced radical acceptance of his diagnosis, not giving up, not passivity, but not wasting energy railing against the reality of it. He practiced response over reaction, choosing each day how to engage with his illness rather than being consumed by fear of it. He maintained his stillness practice, arguably more important than ever. And here's what's remarkable: by many accounts, the last 6 years of Wayne Dyer's life were among his most productive and his most meaningful. He described them as a period of deep clarity, of knowing what mattered. Difficulty, for Dyer, wasn't the enemy of a meaningful life. It was, when met with the right internal resources, the accelerator of one. This is what the unbreakable mind makes possible. Not the absence of difficulty. The ability to meet difficulty without being destroyed by it, and to find, within it, something worth living for. There's one more concept I want to introduce before we get to the key takeaway. Wayne Dyer called it emotional independence, and I think it's one of the most important ideas in everything he ever taught. Most people are emotionally dependent, not on substances, on people, on circumstances, on outcomes. Their emotional state is contingent on external things being a certain way. I'll feel good when this relationship works out. I'll feel confident when I get the promotion. I'll feel peaceful when this situation resolves. I'll be happy when my finances improve. Do you recognize this pattern? All of these are statements of emotional dependency. The emotional state, good, confident, peaceful, happy, is being held hostage by an external condition. Dyer's teaching on this was radical. Your emotional state is your responsibility. Not your partner's responsibility, not your boss's responsibility, not the economy's responsibility, yours. Now this isn't about blame. It's not saying that other people's actions don't affect you, or that circumstances don't matter. Of course they do, but the ultimate question, how you choose to feel about what's happening, that's yours. Emotional independence means building the capacity to access peace, confidence, and clarity regardless of external conditions. Not performing positivity when you don't feel it, but having enough inner resources, enough practice, enough depth, that you're not completely at the mercy of whatever is happening around you. This is a practice. It builds over time. It starts with the question Dyer recommended asking every morning: how am I choosing to feel today? Not, how do circumstances dictate that I feel? How am I choosing to feel? That question, repeated daily, gradually shifts the locus of your emotional experience from outside to inside. From dependent to independent, from breakable to unbreakable. Let me give you some examples of what the unbreakable mind looks like in real lives. Because seeing it embodied makes it real in a way that principles alone cannot. Viktor Frankl, who Wayne Dyer cited more than almost anyone, survived Auschwitz. He lost his wife, his family, everything he had built. He was subjected to conditions designed to destroy human dignity. And he made a discovery that he called the last of the human freedoms: the ability to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. No matter what was taken from him, his freedom, his family, his possessions, that one freedom remained. He could choose how he related to his situation. He used that freedom to find meaning even in the camp, and that meaning, that unbreakable core, is what he credited with his survival. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison for fighting injustice. 27 years. He could have emerged broken, bitter, consumed by rage. Instead, he emerged as one of the most gracious, clear-minded, effective leaders of the 20th century. When asked how he maintained himself through those years, Mandela's answer was essentially what Dyer taught. I decided that they could have my body, but they could not have my mind. Not without my permission. These are extreme examples, but the principle scales: a difficult conversation at work, a relationship going through strain, a financial setback, a health challenge. The same inner resources that helped Frankl and Mandela are available, on a smaller scale, in every difficult moment of your life. The unbreakable mind is not reserved for extraordinary people. It is built by ordinary people who make the decision, daily, consistently, imperfectly, to do the work. Let's bring everything together. Wayne Dyer's teaching on the unbreakable mind comes down to this: you cannot control what life throws at you. You cannot control other people. You cannot control circumstances, markets, health, loss, or any of the thousand things that can go wrong in a human life. But you can control your internal foundation, and that foundation, built through consistent practice, is the only thing that truly determines the quality of your experience. The 3 practices that build it. First, radical acceptance. When something difficult happens, stop fighting reality. Ask, this is what is. Now what do I choose? Remove the second layer of suffering, the resistance, and preserve your energy for what actually matters. Second, response instead of reaction. Build the space between stimulus and response. Practice pausing, even once, even briefly, before engaging with difficulty. Every pause makes the space wider. Every conscious response makes the mind stronger. Third, stillness as a daily non-negotiable. 5 minutes every morning, before the noise starts, before the world gets in. Quiet the system. Let the deeper mind, the one that doesn't break, come forward. These 3 practices, done consistently, will build something in you that no circumstance can take away. A mind that can hold its ground when everything around it is shifting. A foundation that doesn't depend on things going right. As Wayne Dyer said, you cannot always control what goes on outside. But you can always control what goes on inside. Start there, build from there, and watch how everything else, your decisions, your relationships, your resilience, your life, begins to change. Before you go, if any part of this video made you stop and think, that's not an accident. Wayne Dyer believed the right message finds you at exactly the right moment. Maybe this was yours. If it was, hit subscribe. Not because I'm asking you to, but because there are more lessons like this one waiting for you on this channel. And you don't want to miss them. Hit the like button if this added something to your day. It takes 1 second and it helps more people find this content. Turn on notifications, so the next lesson shows up before life gets in the way. I'll see you in the next one. Don't die with your music still in you. Before you go, if any part of this video made you stop and think, that's not an accident. Wayne Dyer believed that the right message finds you at exactly the right moment. Maybe this was yours. If it was, hit subscribe. Not because I'm asking you to, but because there are more lessons like this one waiting for you on this channel. And you don't want to miss them. Hit the like button if this added something to your day. It takes 1 second and it helps more people find this content, people who might need it just as much as you did. And turn on notifications, so the next lesson shows up before life gets in the way. I'll see you in the next one. Don't die with your music still in you.